Snarky joins us tonight. Eric, thanks a lot for coming on.
Pleasure.
So, I'm in the media, I read your column, I read the Washington Post, I read it most of my life, and in the past couple of months, I've seen a lot of stories, including some from you, accusing people of basically carrying water for the Russian government. And that's the Russian government's in the news today. So I thought I would ask you about something I've wondered about for a long time, which is that the Washington Post, for years, many years, has literally carried paid propaganda from the Russian government, a section called Russia Behind the Headlines. It looks like newsprint. It's designed to fool readers into thinking it's real. And it's pure propaganda paid for, distributed by the Russian government with stories like, you know, we're doing a great job in Crimea. Why have you never written about that? How can you attack others when you don't know that your own paper makes money from taking propaganda from the Russian government?
You know, I think that's a really good question. I wish you'd told me you wanted to talk about this, but no, those inserts are interesting. I mean, they are.
Well, why didn't you write about them?
That's a good question. I think, you know, I got a lot to write about, but I am interested in that topic, and I appreciate you bringing it up.
But it's your own paper.
But hold on.
Did you, I mean, you cover the media.
I do
cover the media.
I'm
just interested.
I do cover the media. I believe there's several newspapers that do run these inserts. I think China has one as well.
Right, that's right.
They are what's known as native advertising, where there are signs to the reader that this is not your approved journalism. And I do think that people, subscribers to the Washington Post and the New York Times and other places that run these things, can differentiate between the news that is in the paper proper and the news that is in the Russia, China, so on and so forth insert.
That's really your answer? Because they're well, I would say two things. One, I remember a very famous piece that you did attacking Politico for running native advertising, Mike Allen in particular, and you were all spun up into moral outrage over native advertising. And you never noted, again, that the Russian government is printing something in your paper designed to fool people, filled with the crudest kind of propaganda, but you didn't even notice it somehow. But I'm not surprised, because in case after case, you fail to cover your own paper, running fake or misleading things. And I'll just give you a couple of examples in case you didn't see them. On February 14th,
hold on, Mr. Carlson. I need to back you up there on that, back up there on that premise. The thing that I wrote about Mike Allen was a different case altogether. It was a headline that said native advertising pioneer. That was a cheeky way of saying that he was folding endorsements of companies and so on and so forth into the very text of his newsletter. There was no attempt whatsoever to differentiate that from advertising. They had sponsors in that newsletter, and so I reject the premise 100%. But, you know,
But you still can't answer why your paper intentionally tries to fool readers into believing that Russian propaganda is news and that you haven't bothered to cover it. And your job is to cover the media. I think that's what it says in your columm. But again, February 4th, your paper reports that Steve Bannon, it is true, Steve Bannon drives over to the Department of Homeland Security to advocate for Trump's executive orders. The story turns out to be totally false. It didn't happen. And by the way, your reporters never even called the White House to ask. That's fine. We all make mistakes. You didn't cover it. You didn't cover on January 26th when the State Department fired its entire management team, so said your headline. The story turned out to be totally a crock. You didn't cover that. Why don't you cover your own paper's shortcomings is the question.
I think you missed something, Mr. Carlson. Would you look back, I believe it was in January as well, the Post reported something that wasn't quite straight about, I believe it was a power plant up in Vermont. I wrote a very hard-hitting piece about that situation. And if you go back,
no, you didn't. I read the piece. You want to read what you read? What you wrote? By the way, two of your reporters reported that the Russian government had broken into and hacked the U.S. electricity grid. They were wrong. You said they were wrong. You never bothered to talk to your own reporters, presumably in the same newsroom that you're in. And here's how you ended the piece.
Did you not read my post on that matter?
Not only did I read your post, I just reread it about 10 minutes ago, and you did not interview those reporters in there. You said that the paper wouldn't talk to you.
I pushed for an interview with editor Marty Barron. The story was very critical of the Washington Post, and I would note,
was it? Because here's the last line, and I'm quoting.
Wait 1 second, Mr. Carlson. Wait 1 second, okay? And there's the high-pitched laugh. I appreciate the high-pitched laugh. Anyway.
I appreciate your failing to give me an answer. What's the answer?
All right, there are few, if any, news organizations that allow their in-house media reporter to do as much coverage of their own shop as Fred Hyatt and Marty Baron allow me to do. And I'll cite you a few examples.
Then you just declined to do it? Is that what you're saying? They allow you, but you out of cowardice refuse to? Like, what are you saying?
I did a story about, I don't know how many months ago, about the failure of the Washington Post to get diverse professionals in the higher ranks of the paper. I also broke the story within the Washington Post.
Good for you, but you're not answering my questions about why you did. These are real stories. They're not about diversity in your newsroom. You didn't interview the reporters who wrote the story. And then you end with this. The missteps mar an otherwise spectacular run for the Post. Now, when you write something that brown-nosy, do you feel guilt?
No.
Do you feel like I'm doing my job as a hard-hitting media reporter? A spectacular run of my own publication, my own employers?
Finish the Post, Mr. Carlson. Read till the end, please.
That's actually that's the end of it. And then you go on.
Read the entire last paragraph, please, for me.
Oh, is that where you interview the editor who assigned the piece, the reporters who screwed it up? You get to the question of how it happened? Oh, that wasn't in the piece. I don't have it in front of me. Because you were afraid to track it down because you work there.
No. And I will continue. I also broke at the Washington Post the story of how, this is a few years ago, the advertising side of the paper was putting the arm on the magazine to push content in a certain direction. Was it Russian propaganda?
Oh, you missed that story. Well, you're quite the sleuth, aren't you? It's actually in the paper when you open it up in the middle of it.
Mr. Carlson, did you do anything on Bret Baier's report that there would be an FBI investigation related to the Clinton Foundation? What did you say?
No, but I think that you did. Actually, Eric, I think that you did.
Let me talk.
I'm not the self-described media reporter.
No,
I'm just I don't cover the media. You do.
Oh, yeah. Well, you cover media every single day. I watch you. Everybody on Fox News covers the media.
No, I think that's your job, Eric.
Of Fox News. Listen, Mr. Carlson, I want to ask you.
Well, you would know because you're a little obsessive about Fox News, I notice. You've covered Fox News in the last 10 months 23 times more than MSNBC. And look, you've got a political agenda. You're a lefty. You're angry about politics. I get it. But here's my question to you. Does Jeff Bezos, who owns your paper, does Marty Baron, who edits it, do they ever call you and say, good job, Eric. You're doing a real good job as a media critic. Do they ever tell you? I'm just a sincere question. Do they ever say that to you?
Let me finish with an earlier point that you just seemed to steamroll me on. But what did you say when Bret Baier reported falsely that there would be an FBI indictment, there would be a federal indictment related to the Clinton Foundation 1 week before the election against Donald Trump? What did you say about that?
As a media reporter, we'll have to go back to the tape. So you're saying, look, Eric, look, I get it. You can't answer the question. So you're saying that I somehow have an obligation to be a media reporter, but I'm not a media reporter, and you are. And you get a lot of mileage out of it. I'm Mr. Media Reporter. I'm brave. They give me all this rope, and I can do whatever I want. But you don't. And instead, you single-mindedly pursue your political agenda. And my question is, please answer it. Does the owner of your paper, Jeff Bezos, who runs Amazon, does he ever call you and say, good job? Or does Marty Baron ever say, you're doing what we want you to do? Are you acting on their instruction? Do they notice what you're doing? What do they think of it?
My direct boss is Fred Hyatt. I do not.
Does he say, good job, Eric Wemple? Like, really insightful. Does he ever say that? I'm wondering.
I wouldn't quote him as that, and I don't appreciate the puerile angle of inquiry here.
It's not puerile, it's sincere, because I don't see you as a media critic. I see you as a political hack acting out his political beliefs on paper with the cover of media criticism. I'm just a media critic. And everyone who reads you knows that. And I'm wondering, do your editors know that? Do they read it and say, you're really covering the media straight? Do they think that?
I believe I do cover the media straight. Today, for example, did you see what I wrote today? I questioned the New York Times as to how they gave a public account of a reporter. Look.
Oh, you questioned your competitor. That's very brave. But do you ever question yourself? Do you ever question your own
Mr.
paper?
Carlson,
I don't think you do very much.
I will put the Washington Post's, into the freedom that I have and the times that I have criticized my own paper against anyone in this industry. Okay?
Okay. I'm starting to feel bad for you. Look, the point is just actually, you have the freedom, and I think it's great. You should just use it to do something useful, like reporting on Russian propaganda in your own paper. We're out of time. Eric, it's great to see you. Thanks a lot for coming on. And of course, I hope you'll come back.
These backwards men, I'm like ripped on. Back at it like an automatic. Sip cheap liquor till I'm leaning backwards. Young English, write the chapters. Black Paisley, yes, we go hard. I said we go hard. I said we go hard. go hard. You said we go hard. I said we go